My boyfriend and ex-husband worked together, AITA for giving my boyfriend food to take to work. I, 26, had been married for 4 years. During those years, things were good for the most part. My ex-husband, Jason, and I shared a simple, comfortable life, but like all relationships, there came a time when things changed. The truth is, I had always known deep down that something wasn't quite right, but it wasn't until later that the full picture became clear. Jason, my now ex-husband, wanted children, specifically a mini-me, someone to carry on his legacy. For a long time, I didn't think much of it. He was a good man in many ways, and I thought his desire to have a child would pass. But it didn't. After a few years, I discovered that I couldn't have children. It wasn't something that broke my heart because honestly, I had never felt the need to be a mother. The thought of raising children had always seemed more like a societal expectation than something I truly desired. Jason, on the other hand, felt the sting of that reality deeply. It was like a dark cloud that loomed over him, making everything else feel insignificant in comparison. He tried to be understanding at first, but over time, it became clear that his desire for a child was not something he could let go of. He wanted his family, and that dream, I realized, wasn't going to happen with me. After the divorce, I wasn't devastated. I had already started to come to terms with the fact that there were better things out there for me. Jason wasn't a bad person, but he had very specific dreams for his life that didn't align with mine. We parted ways amicably, and while it wasn't the easiest decision, it was the right one. I soon met someone else, someone who, in many ways, changed everything for me. My boyfriend Ethan is a genuinely kind person. He's not perfect, but I have never met anyone who makes me feel as valued, as understood, and as loved as he does. We've been together for 7 months now, and those 7 months have felt like the most natural and joyful time in my life. Ethan and I live in a small town, and as you might imagine, everyone knows everyone. The small town life has its charms, but it also means that the lines between past and present often blur in the most unexpected ways. This was something I quickly learned when I found out that Ethan and my ex-husband, Jason, worked together. Both of them are military contractors, working on airfields, doing different jobs. Despite their different roles, they ended up in the same place with the same group of guys. It was a bit awkward at first, but after a while, I got used to it. At first, Ethan and I joked about how strange it was that my ex-husband and my new boyfriend would be working in such close proximity. But soon enough, it became the norm, and things between the three of us seemed to settle into an unusual yet peaceful rhythm. Part of me always found it amusing how Ethan and Jason worked together, but there was something that always made me a little hesitant to fully relax about it. I didn't want to cause any friction, and I certainly didn't want things to become too complicated. But the dynamics between the two men were a bit strange, even if they tried to make it work. Ethan, being the charming person he is, has always been open about how he feels. And from the very beginning, he was clear about one thing. He loved the baked goods I made. Ethan had been friends with Jason for years before we even met, and he often spoke about how much he loved the desserts I used to make when I was married to Jason. Funny enough, I had made some pretty good treats for Jason's lunch back then. It was something I'd always done because I enjoyed baking. I've always had a passion for cooking, especially baking. I had taken numerous culinary classes and refined my skills in the kitchen. Baking was something I was good at, and I enjoyed. It's so much that I would often make extra to send with Jason to work. It was a small gesture of love that I knew he appreciated, even if he didn't always show it. After we broke up, I didn't stop baking. In fact, it became a small ritual for me. I started making treats for Ethan and sending him off with little boxes filled with delicious homemade goodies. It was a way for me to show my affection, and it was something Ethan truly appreciated. He would send me text messages every day to tell me how much he loved the things I baked. Over time, it became a normal routine. I packed Ethan's lunch, made sure to send him off with treats, and often received little messages of thanks and compliments. I loved it. I loved making him happy with something I was good at, and it felt like I was doing something right. But, as much as I enjoyed it, things started to take a strange turn when I heard about the comments Jason's coworkers were making. Apparently, some of the guys they worked with had been giving Jason a hard time. They were making jokes about how my ex-husband's dating life had been going poorly. I wasn't surprised. And how I had upgraded from one mechanic to another. I knew this wasn't the nicest thing to say, but I couldn't help but feel a sense of amusement. My boyfriend, Ethan, was significantly more attractive than Jason, and I knew it wasn't easy for Jason to deal with. As the jokes continued, it seemed that Jason was growing more and more uncomfortable going to work. He sent me a long message one day, asking me to stop sending the baked goods to work with Ethan. He said it was causing too much tension at work, and the guys were making him feel worse. To make matters more complicated, he asked me not to come to their annual 4th of July celebration. Reading his message made me feel a mix of emotions. I understood that he was feeling uncomfortable, but at the same time, I couldn't help but feel like he was making his problems my problem. I didn't think it was fair of him to ask me to stop doing something I genuinely enjoyed. I also didn't like the idea that he was trying to control my actions, even indirectly. I spent a lot of time thinking about what he said. Ethan and I had been dating for 7 months, and I was happy with him. I didn't want to cause any unnecessary drama, but I also didn't feel like I was doing anything wrong. I wasn't trying to make Jason uncomfortable. I was just living my life with someone I cared about. In the end, I wasn't sure if I should listen to Jason or stand my ground. I was torn between wanting to be empathetic and understanding of his feelings and feeling that his request was unreasonable. After all, Ethan and I were a couple now, and we had every right to enjoy our lives together. I decided to reach out to a few close friends and family members to get their thoughts on the matter. Some of them thought Jason was being a little dramatic, while others understood why he might feel hurt. It was a tough call, but in the end, I knew I had to follow my instincts. While I still wasn't entirely sure if I was in the wrong, I was hoping that things would eventually calm down. I wasn't going to stop being me just because of someone else's insecurities. The next few days were filled with a sense of unease. Jason's request to stop sending baked goods with Ethan weighed on me. It wasn't just about the treats. It was about the larger issue at hand. Jason had been an important part of my life for years. We had shared a lot of good moments, and I never intended to hurt him. But now, it felt like he was trying to disrupt my happiness because of his own insecurities. I didn't want to make things harder for anyone, but I also didn't think it was fair for Jason to ask me to give up something that brought me joy. Ethan and I had only been together for 7 months, but in that short time, he had become someone important to me. It was hard to explain, but I didn't want to live in the shadow of my past, always walking on eggshells just to avoid upsetting Jason. As the weekend approached, I found myself growing more conflicted. Ethan was supportive, as always. He told me he didn't mind the jokes and didn't want me to change anything about what I was doing, but he also understood that I had a difficult decision to make. He didn't want me to feel pressured, and I appreciated that. It made me feel like he respected me, but the pressure from Jason was starting to get to me. The 4th of July event was coming up, and I had already planned to attend. Jason's message, asking me not to go, hung over me. I wasn't sure how to respond. Would it be weird for me to go, knowing how uncomfortable it might make Jason? Or would it be worse for me to stay away and give in to his request? I tried to talk to a few friends about it. One of my closest friends, Emily, gave me some advice that helped put things into perspective. She said that I shouldn't feel guilty for living my life and doing what made me happy. She reminded me that I wasn't responsible for Jason's emotions anymore. Our marriage was over, and it was time for both of us to move on. While I appreciated Emily's perspective, I still struggled with the guilt. I didn't want to hurt Jason, but I also didn't want to let him control my actions. It was a fine line between being considerate and letting him walk all over me. At the same time, Ethan made it clear that he wanted me to be happy. He didn't want me to stop being who I was just to make Jason feel better. He wanted me to feel free to be myself, without any pressure. It was hard to hear that because part of me wanted to avoid conflict, but the other part of me knew that I couldn't keep living in the past. I couldn't keep letting my history with Jason dictate my present with Ethan. As I sat with these thoughts, I realized something important. The situation wasn't just about the baked goods or the 4th of July event. It was about boundaries. I had to set boundaries with Jason for my own peace of mind, and I had to make sure I wasn't letting anyone, not even Jason, dictate my choices. The following week, I decided to go to the 4th of July celebration. I wanted to show Jason that I could still be respectful and cordial, but that I wasn't going to let him control my life. Ethan came with me, and the night went better than expected. It was a little awkward, but it wasn't as bad as I had feared. Jason didn't say much to me, but he didn't say much to anyone. He seemed to keep to himself for the most part, which was fine by me. I didn't need to prove anything to him, and I didn't need his approval. By the end of the night, I felt relieved. I had made my decision, and it felt like the right one. I had stood up for myself, and I had done it in a way that didn't cause unnecessary drama. After the 4th of July event, things seemed to settle down. Jason didn't make any more requests about the baked goods, and I didn't feel as much pressure. I was relieved but also cautious. I knew that things wouldn't always be easy between us, but I felt like I had taken the right step toward creating boundaries that would allow me to move on. In the following weeks, I continued to bake for Ethan, and I continued to pack his lunches with little treats. I had gotten used to the routine, and it was something that made me happy. Every time he sent me a message thanking me for the treats, it filled me with joy. It was a small but meaningful way to express my love for him. At the same time, I tried to keep my distance from Jason, not out of bitterness, but out of respect for my own personal space. I didn't need to constantly be reminded of our past. I didn't need to be caught up in his unresolved issues. As time passed, I realized something important. I was finally living the life I wanted. I was no longer living in the shadow of my past or trying to meet other people's expectations. I was focused on my present and my future with Ethan. And while I couldn't control Jason's feelings, I could control how I responded to them. Jason's comments stopped, and the tension seemed to ease. I was grateful for that, but I knew that I couldn't rely on that alone for my peace of mind. It wasn't about him anymore. It was about me and the life I was building with Ethan. Eventually, I stopped second-guessing myself. I realized that, in the end, it wasn't about being right or wrong. It was about being true to myself and making decisions that were best for me. Looking back on everything that had happened, I felt a sense of closure. The past was just that. The past. I had learned a lot about myself and about the importance of boundaries. My relationship with Ethan continued to grow stronger. We spent more time together, traveled, laughed, and enjoyed life. I felt secure in our relationship, and the nagging doubts that had once been there started to fade away. We had created something special, and I wasn't going to let anything, not even my ex-husband, get in the way of that. One of the things I had learned was that it was okay to prioritize my own happiness. I didn't have to constantly please others, and I didn't have to feel guilty for living my life the way I wanted to. Jason was a part of my history, but he no longer held the power to dictate how I lived. In the end, I knew I had made the right decision. I had chosen peace, and I had chosen love.